Hello, bonjour, Calgary. Did you know that at least 238,000 people speak Français in Alberta and that 90,000 live right here in Calgary? Oui, c'est vrai. It's true. And now, thanks to Shaw Community Access Programming, we get to reach out to everyone to let you know all about our special people, places, events, and activities happening in this fair city in both English and en français. That's right, mes amis. We begin the first part of our program in English and then we repeat it en français. So stay with us. Welcome, everyone, to Hello, Bonjour, Calgary. My name is Anne Boiteau, and today we're chatting with Dr. Robert Stam and Madame Carmel Despins Klassen. Hello. And Dr. Stam.
You can call me Bob, Anne.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bob, how did you get started with all this Francophone community in Rouleauville?
Well, there were, I guess, both professional and personal reasons. When my wife and I first moved to Calgary in 1969, we lived in the Elbow Park area, which was quite near Rouleauville. 4th Street was the way we went downtown. And there were all these old magnificent buildings that were in that neighborhood, the convent, the school, the cathedral. And then there was Carmel's family hardware store, Despins Hardware, which was a grand old institution. And the whole neighborhood felt very warm and comfortable. But then there was a professional reason that got me interested in the history of that area. In the mid-70s, I had written a book about the history of the public school system in Calgary.
Okay.
No sooner was it published than people said to me, yes, but Bob, didn't you know that there were earlier schools in Calgary? Didn't you know about St. Mary's? Didn't you know about Sacred Heart Convent? I thought I'd better do more research. And that's how it started.
Ah, and then you wrote this wonderful article in 1980.
Yes.
And that turned into a lot more than probably you thought it would.
Well, it did. I had no idea what it would lead to. Rouleauville Square and the whole reinterest in the history of that area. And look at it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice. And Carmel, your father had the hardware store.
That's right.
In Mission. So when did that start?
I think they started their first hardware store about 2 blocks from the last one, and that was in 1917.
1917.
Yeah, and then they moved location closer to the Elbow River, and my father had bought some property there, with stores. So there was a restaurant, shoemaker, all those cleaners. So it expanded.
Ah, yes. And your family or your parents, or your dad, came out here in around 1911,
Right.
Did you say?
Yeah.
And already had family here.
Yeah, his 2 brothers came. His eldest brother came in 1909, and his next brother came, Adrien, he came out in 1910, and my father came out in 1911.
Ah, very interesting. And Bob, did you meet Carmen back then, or her parents?
No,
or?
it was only about 5 years ago that
Okay.
I met Carmel. We were both doing some things at Kirby Center.
Okay. But you knew her dad
Well,
from the store.
I knew the store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he,
And then when I heard what Carmel's family name was, I said, oh, yes.
There's the link.
There's the link, yes.
Ah, very interesting. And then, so what did you discover through your research? What kind of things interested you in the research you did?
I think when it was all over, what really interested me was that here is an alternative approach to Calgary's history. I sometimes get a little annoyed at what I call the orthodox version of Calgary history. You know, we start with the mounted police and the ranchers and the stampede, and it sort of segues naturally into the petroleum industry, and that's all there is. And yet, there are all these other communities in Calgary that I think, you know, contribute equally to the total development of the city.
Yes.
So we have to celebrate all aspects of Calgary's history.
Yes. And you both were teachers, professors in university and school, Carmel for you. And did you ever bring that into your classes, the history of the Francophones in Calgary?
Well, it wasn't in the curriculum, but I probably slipped some of it in. Yeah.
Well, I made sure it got in. One of the courses I taught at University of Calgary was the history of Canadian education. So when you're talking about origins of schooling in Calgary, you have a public school system and the Catholic school system.
Yes.
And because of the research I had done on Rouleauville, I was able to give equal weight to both. Yeah. So yes, definitely I
Good.
used it in my teaching.
Good, good, good. And from this rich history, what do you think made Calgary change? Like, why are we not talking more about this Francophone history?
Well,
Do you think really the Francophone community should have maybe pushed that a bit more?
they tried. We were held back.
Yeah?
My uncle went with Dr. Beauchemin to ask for a Francophone school and at the separate system, and they would not accept that.
I think the problem starts with Bishop McNally, who became a bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Calgary in, I think, 1911, 1913.
1913.
1913. And he made a deliberate attempt to weed out a Francophone influence and changed the diocese from, I wouldn't say a totally Francophone diocese, but a diocese with a strong Francophone presence into an English-speaking diocese.
But he had, if I remember, Bishop McNally had support from Les Sœurs Grises, the Grey Nuns, a lot, no?
Really?
To help him in what he was doing? They were still there, were they not?
Well, they came much earlier than he did.
Yes, but they
And
were
they were
still
brought
there
out-
when they were...
They were brought out by Francophone missionaries.
Yeah,
And Monseigneur Grandet.
yes,
But, you know, I mean, could they oppose the will of the bishop? I don't think so.
probably not, probably not.
The interesting thing is we've got Bishop McNally High School out in northeast Calgary. It's probably the most ethnically and linguistically diverse high school in the entire city. Bishop McNally would turn over in his grave.
Yes, I was going to say that.
May he do so.
Yes. Oh, that's very interesting. Yes. And now imagine if he saw all the number of Francophone schools and the school board that we have now, and it took quite a while to get that established, but now it's very strong all over the province. Yes. So, good. And Carmel, you participated in a lot of Francophone associations, and tell us a little bit about your involvement.
First of all, I taught the first immersion graduates in Calgary. And I had 12 students, and 6 of them had major scholarships.
So was that at St. Mary's?
Yeah, at St.
St.
Mary's. Sadly, they've taken the bilingual system out of St. Mary's. I don't know why. Some students phoned me and wanted They even went down to the school board to protest. But they've put immersion at St. Francis and at Bishop Grandin. But St. Mary's is very central,
Yes.
very old and very special. It's over 100 years old. I don't know who made those decisions.
So
I was teaching religious studies in French, and Father Moen, who was then in charge of religious studies, took that out of our course of bilingual studies. I was very disappointed.
So it was called bilingual studies back then, not immersion, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bilingual studies. First year of bilingual studies.
Yeah.
So did the students like it back then? Did they
Yeah.
like to learn French?
Well, I think some students found it difficult. A lot of them would drop out in grade 9. But those who stayed were, I would say most of them were stars.
Yes.
You know, they really led the way. They were bright. I would say that a lot of those students were doing French literature at a university level.
That's good. Very, very good. So Bob, are you still involved with the community here,
Well,
the Francophone
really,
community?
only as an observer. The community has made such fabulous strides forward. We're going back, 30, 35 years, and since then there's just been a marvelous renaissance.
Yes, yes.
Yes, but I couldn't have bilingual studies when I was growing up here. So my brothers and I all had to go to school in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I was 7 years boarding school.
In Edmonton. Your parents really wanted you to keep the language.
And to be able to write it
Yes.
and handle it properly. And my mother was a teacher, so she knew the value of education too.
Yes. And did your father speak English when he came out
Oh
here?
yes, fluently.
Okay.
He
Your
came in
family was already bilingual.
Oh yeah, he was only 19 when he came out here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he came out to join his brothers?
Yes,
I guess.
and he stayed here for about 10 years. And then in 1922 he went back, and he used to date my mother's sister, but she had given up on him, so she got married to someone else. So he married the chaperone.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. And that was
My
back
mother.
in Quebec, right? In
Yeah.
Saint-Anne-la-Pérade, you said.
Saint-Anne-la-Pérade.
Oh, very
They
good.
got married on a very wintry storm at Saint-Anne-la-Pérade in the beautiful Gothic church.
And then he convinced your mother to go back to come back to Calgary.
Come west. She'd never been west, Didn't speak much English. So she'd go shopping and she'd have to point to that. And my father sent her out to get their first apartment, which became the 4th Street Rose. Remember that?
Yes. Oh, yes.
That was their first apartment.
First apartment. Wow. So did she want to go back, or she liked Calgary? And
Well, you know the saying in French, qui prend mari, prend pays.
that's right.
So
Well,
she stayed.
She stayed, eh?
And
So
they had 5 children in 10 years, so that's pretty busy.
pretty busy. I want to thank you both very much. We're already done. We could talk for hours about this history, but thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmel.